morning, Chairman Orange, members of the committee and staff, and all of those who've assembled here to attend to this issue. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify in favor of the Wage Theft Prevention Act of 2014. My name is Ari Weisbard. I'm the Deputy Director of the DC Employment Justice Center. We're a nonprofit here in DC that helps provide free advice to low-wage workers about employment issues they have on their jobs, and works on public policy reforms like this one to help address those issues at a systemic level. We provide free legal advice to more than 1,200 workers a year, and the most common complaint we see, more than any other type, is wage theft. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen multiple hundreds of workers in our very small law clinic dealing with these issues. So I want to thank you, Chairman Orange, for your leadership in introducing this bill and scheduling a hearing so promptly, and with the snow, rescheduling a hearing so promptly. This bill would establish a fair enforcement procedure and meaningful remedies to ensure that wage theft in the district is finally taken seriously. Today, far too many workers in the District of Columbia are paid less than the minimum wage, illegally denied overtime, or paid less than they were promised. Many lose whole days or weeks of pay because their employers simply refuse to give them their paychecks. And you cited the numbers on this, but actually I've looked at some cases in D.C. That suggest the numbers might be even higher here. The Attorney General in the recent performance review just included just a very small sampling. The cases that that Office of Wage Hour is no longer able to deal with, they refer over to the Attorney General. And the cases that were filed just in the last year included 45 employees for a total of $128,900.98 at issue. So that's actually almost $3,000 and even more than the national studies suggested. And when the Attorney General was asked, how many cases have you investigated or how many cases have you filed in court this last year, they said they had no information relevant to that inquiry. And so we really see a lot of these cases hitting a dead end under the current system, and that's why this bill, setting up a hearing process where it can move forward without the Attorney General, is so important. It's not a coincidence that the results in the district are worse than other places in the country. As you mentioned, a report gave our laws an F when it comes to dealing with these issues. And as a result, employees are actually more likely to have money stolen by their own employers than they are by someone on the street or someone breaking into their house. I mean, that's really the biggest risk they're exposed to. Hundreds of employees come forward and file wage theft complaints each year. But the survey data shows that these are really just the tip of the iceberg. Many more experience wage theft in silence without effective recourse. We heard from Mr. Felix, who did decide to come forward, but for everyone who's willing to do that, they see what happens to those workers, and many more simply decide to suffer in silence or just try to find another job instead and deal with it. And when a worker does complain, the employers can retaliate with near impunity. The DOES, in their answers to the performance questions, said that they have no power to ask an employer to reinstate an employee, even when the firing was illegal. So workers can get along, and just try to keep up for weeks or months, hoping that their employers will pay what they promised. But when they're not paid, they usually can't afford to hire a lawyer or to take time off from work to pursue these issues. It can take days of additional unpaid time to fight when someone's already behind on their payments because of the wage theft. When workers do come forward and they file these claims, they often report to us a long string of canceled meetings or delayed meetings because the employer simply decides not to show up or not to cooperate. If that happened in any other context, a judge would say, okay, there's a default order against that employer. If someone, in unemployment or workers' comp or anywhere else, you can't just not show up and then have the thing delayed, and so you get to keep borrowing money from your employee without paying them. But in these cases, that's exactly what happens, and why this bill is so important for creating a formal procedure. From the perspective of the business that commits wage theft, it's really just a great deal. Plenty of workers don't come forward, and you just get that money. And when the workers do come forward, even then, in the worst case scenario, you just pay what you should have paid to begin with after getting an interest-free loan. So it shouldn't be surprising that many employers are careful to keep their employees off the books. According to DOES, when an employer fails to keep records, even legally required records, they're not held accountable for any orally promised wages that they owe their employees. So they actually are better off when they don't follow the law about bookkeeping records. Without better procedures and remedies for employees, wage theft will continue. Employees will suffer, and honest employers will not be able to compete on a level playing field, as Mr. Mayo mentioned. In conclusion, we urge this committee to pass the Wage Theft Prevention Act of 2014 quickly so that workers will be able to get a fair process and remedies when their wages are stolen, and so that we can ensure adequate funding to implement and enforce worker protection laws in this year's budget, so we don't have to wait until October of 2015 in order for these reforms to go into effect. People who work hard for a living deserve to make a living. You've helped guarantee that by pushing through very quickly the raise in the minimum wage, but now we have to make sure it's enforceable and that their wages are not stolen by the people who hire them. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ari, it's always a pleasure seeing you.
Yes, sir.
And thank you very much for all the representation that your organization provides. I think you mentioned over 1,200 workers a year that you guys are in contact with. So we really appreciate that, and we look forward to continue a partnership of working to make things better for working families, and especially those that find themselves in this category of having to deal with low wages, and then have someone steal those wages is certainly not going to be tolerated, and we're going to work with you to close those gaps. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.